welcome to another episode of VERITAS. My name is Jessica Lubianski, and we are continuing right back into our trail of vocations. And today I am joined by Sister Elizabeth, and I'm so excited to have her join me because she was just sharing with me before we started filming that she is headed into a big anniversary for making her vows. And so, Sister, I'm going to ask you, please introduce yourself and tell us about that big anniversary that you have coming up.
Well, my name is Sister Elizabeth Ann Vasquez, and I'm originally from Austin, Texas. And the celebration is actually 50 years of that I made my first vows here in San Antonio at our Mount Sacred Heart Convent. And that's near Oblate School of Theology. We're neighbors. So we had a house there, a convent, where I made my first vows in 1970. Unfortunately, with the COVID and restrictions for large gatherings, I'm holding, and my congregation is holding, the ceremony and the celebration and the commemoration of my first vows anniversary, which we don't know when it's going to be, but we're just, hanging loose and hoping that it'll be soon, if not next spring.
Right.
And celebrating, this big milestone in my life.
Yes, that is tremendous. So I just want to first say thank you for your vocation. 50 years is such an amazing number. I always know when I see couples in my own parish and they've hit that big 50-year milestone, it just brings a lot of joy. And sometimes we don't think about celebrating our sisters and our priests and their milestones and their anniversary within the life of the church. So thank you for your vocation, first and foremost, and for being here today. So I want to get right into it and ask you, how did you decide your vocation?
That's a good question. It goes way back to when I was 7 years old, and I had not met any sisters at all. I didn't know what sisters were and who they were. My mother had met sisters before, and I'm the firstborn, the oldest in the family, and I had been getting ready to enter second grade. But my first grade year was a very difficult year because I was having trouble with my tonsils. So I missed a lot of school. So over the summer, my mom decided that it was time for me to have surgery to remove my tonsils, and hopefully that would help me to not miss school so often. But that summer, the sisters arrived at our parish in Austin. It's a small parish, it's still there. It's on the east side of Austin. And so these sisters were invited by my pastor, who was a Holy Cross father, and he invited these sisters to come and teach at the school. And it was the first time we were having sisters there. So my mother said, "Would you like to come and meet your teachers?" And I said, "Sure." And I was just coming straight out of the hospital. I couldn't eat anything because I was still very sensitive from my throat. And so we went in, we rang the doorbell, and the sister came out, and she was wearing a habit and fully garbed with a veil. All I could see were her eyes and her smile. And so she welcomed us, and she let us come into the convent and what they call at that time a parlor. It's a little receiving room. And so they invited us to come in, and then we talked, and they said, that they were there to be teachers, and they were happy to meet me, and I was going to be coming into second grade. And so I met my second grade teacher, and she was a very, very young sister. And then they said, "Would you like to have a little snack?" And my mom said, "Well, she can't have anything because she's just had surgery." So she said, "Well, what can she eat?" And my mom said, "Well, ice cream." And the sister said, "Ice cream? Sure, we have it." So that was a kind of a way to come in, and we went into their little kitchen, and the sister offered me ice cream, and we started talking, and we left, and I told my mom, you know, they're really special. There's something special about them. And at that time, for a 7-year-old child, I was very impressed, and I felt a certain closeness to God. So I feel that was the beginning of my vocation.
Wow. And I think, you know, I read this book one time, and it's called Many Are Called. And so many times God, he gives us those encounters with different people that show us a vocation, but very few times we actually answer that call. So what advice, sister, would you have for those that maybe feel a little call, but they're not sure if it is from God or what to think? What advice would you have for our young church if they even feel a little inkling of a call to a vocation?
Well, I think don't ignore it. Don't ignore the inkling. I know that for me, I had it in the back of my mind since I was 7 years old and I first met them. And it was kind of like that was God nudging me and saying, you know, this is a life, you know, that is a possibility, it's an option for you. And then I grew up with the sisters. I was always hanging around the school, helping the sisters, and I loved being at their convent, and they would invite me to visit with them in the chapel and say a little prayer with them. So it was always like God was leading me, and it was when I had to make a decision where I was going to go to high school. And we had only one Catholic school in Austin. So the sisters asked me if I was interested to come to San Antonio because they had a high school, which was at that time what we would call today a house of discernment, where you discern whether you really want to pursue this vocation or not. And at that point, I really had to think seriously. This is leaving home and leaving my hometown and coming to San Antonio to this high school. And it really sounded attractive because I loved the sisters and I wanted to really decide if this is what I wanted. So I would think that, nowadays is if you do feel you've met a sister or a priest or you've been in college or and have an event where you've met a sister and you say, wow, what's that life about? Is I would pursue maybe talking to a sister. We have the vocation office here that receives calls and is happy to answer questions. Or if you run into a sister and you'd like to continue a conversation, we're available to speak with young folks and accompany them in their process of searching out, is this something God is calling? And I would definitely invite this young person to pray, to visit convents, or to also seek a spiritual director, someone who can guide them in their journey.
Awesome. That is wonderful advice. And I think for all generations, we're all called at different times. You were called at 7 years old, and some people are called much later in life. I have a friend that just joined Sisters of the Holy Spirit, and she's in her formation, and she's a little older. And so I think no matter what, this idea that we're called in the season of our life when God needs us, but we have to be open, like you said, to that encounter. And God gives us a beautiful community of priests and sisters just like yourself, to help us explore that call. And so my challenge to you this week was just like Sister said, if you have any inkling that you are called to a vocation of religious life, whether it be the priesthood or to be a sister, explore that opportunity. Talk to someone, pray for someone, seek a spiritual companion, contact our vocations office. We will put the contact information in the video for you as well. But don't ignore that call. And if it turns out that wasn't, your life's plan and journey, at least you took the time to try to experience that call and listen to that path. God will never be disappointed in you, no matter what, but He is calling each of us to live holy lives, and He has a beautiful vocation planned out for us. So don't be afraid to go ahead and call and answer that call. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Veritas. Thank you, sister. Thank you for your vocation, and congratulations on your 50 years since you've taken your vows.
Thank you.